to North Quincy High School. I'm the moderator, Shazi Dewalaby, and I'll be asking candidates for mayor the questions solicited from residents by the event sponsors. Before we get to those questions, the candidates will have 2 minutes each to present their backgrounds and to tell you why they're running for office. Mr. Koch will go first.
Thank you, Chazi, and thank you to the sponsors of this evening's event. I look forward to the dialogue this evening. I'm in my 4th term as mayor, and I'm very proud of the record. It's pretty cool coming back to the high school where I graduated from, as did my parents, as did my wife, and my oldest son this past spring. And I have 2 children here as juniors, so I'm very proud of our Quincy Public Schools, and that is one of the major areas that we made tremendous progress on over the last 8 years. New schools, we're leveraging yard dollars with state and federal dollars, infrastructure improvements citywide, areas that were long ignored with plague, flooding problems we've been addressing, seawall improvements, intersection improvements just outside this building, 75% paid for by the state. The other end of the city, 100% paid for by the state at Quincy Avenue. We continue to make investments in your neighborhood, investments in the city. We have 53 municipal buildings, including 20 school buildings. This summer, including this building, we replaced all the doors and windows, energy efficient. We're getting 70% reimbursement from the state on those projects. We built Central Middle School with 80% reimbursement, and we're about to break ground in a beautiful new Sterling Middle School in Southwest Quincy, again attaining the highest reimbursable rate. We've made tremendous progress. Crime is down. Parks have been rebuilt. We have a beautiful new senior center we opened up just 5 years ago, a senior center for the first time in our city's history. We have veteran services that are matched by none. We are an incredible city. We're on the move. We've made great progress. I want to continue that progress as your mayor. And I respectfully ask for your vote on November 3rd. And I look forward to the continued dialogue. And I'm grateful for those of you who received me in your home, whether it's at the door or a coffee hour. Thank you for sharing your stories and your issues with me. I look forward to this evening's debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Koch. Mr. Phelan.
Thank you, Chazi, and thank you to our sponsors. I'd also like to thank the thousands of concerned residents and taxpayers who welcomed me as I campaigned door to door these past few months and who were truly so kind to me. I listened, and what I heard reinforced why I'm running for mayor. The city is spending too much money on things we do not need, and the things we do need, they're not managing properly. Can you imagine $50,000 per mile for snow removal? Wasteful, excessive spending is increasing taxes on seniors with fixed incomes and struggling families. The city doesn't seem to have any direction or vision for the future and is allowing projects to be developed willy-nilly, causing absolute gridlock in our streets and diminishing the quality and the character of our neighborhoods. And I have to say, the condition of our city center is embarrassing, as is the fact that we're the largest city in the Commonwealth without a hospital. But we are a great city with great potential, part of which is the great strength and diversity and culture that we have here. We should be embracing that diversity as we look to the future. So Quincy is in desperate need of change, especially as we elect someone to a 4-year term. The good news is that we have the option. I've teamed up and am humbled by the endorsements of my opponents in the preliminary, Ann Mahoney and Doug Gutrow, to provide real unity and real change. We had together 10,000 voters behind us, and hopefully after tonight, a few more. Now is the time for proven leadership, and with your help, we can have a brighter future.
Thank you very much, Mr. Phelan. Ladies and gentlemen, if I may say, we are in a limited time, and I would urge you to hold your applause as happy as you are to hear these statements to the end, and then give them a rousing round of applause. But let's wait and hear what they have to say. Give them all the time. I'll now pose a question to one of the candidates who will have 2 minutes to answer. His opponent will then be allowed 1-minute response or rebuttal. The first question will go to Mr. Koch. Our first set of questions concerns civic engagement and Asian representation in government services. Quincy's Asian population makes up more than 24% of residents, yet there are very few Asian Americans represented in city government departments on any level. What will you do to recruit more qualified minority candidates in all areas of government services?
Actually, we do that on an ongoing basis. In fact, the last few years in our school system, we've hired a number of new Asian teachers in the ELL program, paraprofessionals, and other professional staff areas. So it's very important we continue to do that to show a reflection of the community population into those services. I know that the library services, recently we've had a number of Asians adding to our library staff, beautiful library system that we do have, and I know Asian families, as well as every family in the city, enjoy the beautiful library services that we do have. We do have civil service on a number of our areas, including labor service. We hire a lot of laborers that those folks are hired based on where they sign up on the list. So people do have to get on the list to do that. We are recently advertising for a new position, well, a current position that's vacant actually, in the treasurer's office, and hoping to fill that with someone with qualifications in the financial area, but also the language skills to help us deal with some of the challenges that some of our immigrants face when they're dealing with the city on various services. So I think we're making some good strides, and we'll continue to work that. I'm proud of the work our Asian American Committee does. They meet on a regular basis. And they advise me and guide me on a number of issues. But you know, at the end of the day, this city has been very welcoming. And I think that's why the Asian community has chosen Quincy for the beautiful schools, the transportation that we have, the public transportation, the great parks, the low crime rate. And over the last several years, we've had almost 500 new Asian businesses locating in Quincy. So remarkable transformation our city is going through. And I continue to welcome our newcomers and continue to serve our newcomers as we do everybody in the city with good, outstanding, first-class services.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Mr. Phelan, 60 seconds.
Sure, I can tell you what I will do and what I did as mayor, more importantly. You know, the mayor talks about the civil service list as if that's a limitation on hiring folks from Asian descent. In fact, when I was the mayor, I asked for a language-specific civil service list so that I could hire folks that were either spoke Cantonese or Mandarin in the police department. And as a result, I was able to hire 2 additional police officers from the Asian community. Likewise, I asked for the same type of list for the fire department. There were no qualified candidates. I also asked for a gender-specific list as well for the police department. And that's important. We recruited candidates from the Asian community, particularly for jobs that interfaced with the public. We hired somebody in inspectional services because we knew there was much interface between the public and the individuals.
Thank you.
Treasurer's office, election department.
Thank you, Mr. Phelan. Thank you. And please hold your applause, I would ask you. Mr. Phelan, you have 2 minutes to follow through on this topic. What are some proactive measures you might take to spur new immigrants to become civically involved in their communities?
That's just a wonderful question, and it is happening in our city. We had a wonderful cultural fair, for example, when I was in the mayor's office. By the way, a senior member of the mayor's office, my staff, I always made sure was of Asian descent. We have upwards of 25% Asian population in this community. So we know we have the Lunar New Year Festival and the August Moon Festival. We thought it would be good to celebrate all our cultures, and we had a cultural fair that was very successful in the center of our city. I think that's one way. We also held what was, I think, a very unique and creative academy, and the academy was with the police department. There are cultural divides within the Asian community and our power structure and city government, and sometimes folks look at government in the wrong way. We wanted to be able to interface. So what we did was we held a Citizens Police Academy for seniors that were Asians, and we had interpreters and Chinese police officers, and we helped try to teach our neighbors about some of the ordinances and ways that we live here in the city of Quincy to assimilate the Asian population to our city. Funny story, I always have stories about knocking doors, but one was a fella, and you hear a lot of things at the doors, people say things, and not always pretty. And one person was kind of complaining about the Asian population in the northern end of the city. But then he pointed to his 3 neighbors who happened to be Asian, and he said, "But I like those guys." Funny, right? What was it about those folks that he liked? He knew them personally. It's the ignorance that is the issue, really. It's the unknowing. We have to bridge that ignorance.
Thank you very much. Mr. Koch, 60 seconds.
Sure, well, I've certainly witnessed it firsthand, the changes at North Quincy. I'm on the same street I grew up on. 2 doors down, I bought a home for my mother's home. And about half my street now is of Asian descent, and I have some wonderful, beautiful neighbors. The Downs was my paper route as a kid. My grandfather had a variety store on Hancock Street as a German immigrant. And we've seen a tremendous transformation of the Downs with a mix of various cultures. The challenge continues to be, whether it's Asian or any newcomer, we've got a lot of others coming to our city, Albanians and others, is to make that connection, to communicate, and remind people, whatever your background, why is it that the municipal election turnout is low but the presidential is high? When the relevance really for you voting is at the local level. The schools, public safety, roads, all those services happen at the local level. So we're going to continue to work it and challenge people. And the Asian community has to step up. You have a responsibility also. Next generation's here to be the scout leaders, to be the volunteers in the youth organizations. So we got to continue to work it and communicate.
Thank you very much. Mr. Koch, this question you'll field first. Education is a topic that affects a broad base of residents and is a particular concern of the Asian community. Do you have any thoughts on how the city could improve our pre-K through 12 system? And in particular, what will you do to increase the availability of low-cost, high-quality preschool programs and after-school programs?
That's a good question. As mayor, we're also chair of the school committee, so it's a terrific part of the role of being mayor. I thoroughly enjoyed that, working with my colleagues on the school committee, working with our principals and administrators and our teachers in the classroom. Quincy has an outstanding education system, and one of the goals has been and continues to be a low class size. I think that's important at all levels, particularly at the elementary and middle school, but very, very important. We have to continue to manage that. The challenge with adding to the pre-K is really the space issue. We've done a lot of work on our school buildings, a lot of infrastructure improvements, but today the education requirements per student requires more education space. So we're now looking at the projections going forward. How do we address that? Where do we make up the space to do just that? We've talked a little bit about Sterling. The next item on the agenda would be a replacement of the Squantum Elementary School. It's the worst plant in the city. But as we do these schools, that is the time to look at the space requirements. How can we help the entire district at the same time? Perhaps we have to redraw the lines. As mayor, we try to provide as many resources as possible for the school. As you know, I become then one of 7 members of the school committee deciding how that budget is broken up. We've added a number of new programs in our system. One of the areas that I'm very proud of over the last couple of years is the work on opiate drug addiction. We've added health interventionists at both high schools. We've added forums. We've added all kinds of speakers coming in and sharing their experiences to our young people. So that to me is a very important aspect going forward. It seems to be affecting the kids younger and younger. So I think we have to continue to look for resources to address that at a younger age, unfortunately. But it's all about allocating the amount of resources, and we'll continue to do that. It's been a priority for our city. We'll continue to make it a priority. Just this last year, we upgraded all our schools with our safety systems as well. They're all secure and safe with all that's going on in our country.
Thank you. Mr. Phelan, a minute to respond.
Boy, education is absolutely my passion. I had a saying when I was the mayor, we need to have the best school system in the state of Massachusetts, but it takes management, right? You have to manage finances and provide resources. Your budget in a city is really your list of priorities. When I was the mayor, We built our budget around the school budget. We implemented, and we found a way to implement full-day kindergarten, early literacy programs, dropout programs. Each year I went to the school department, the school committee and the superintendent and said, listen, what do we need to move forward? Get the figure, and then now what do we need to improve our school system? How are we going to improve it next year? Let's get the funding. Wasteful spending, excessive spending, prevents that from happening. And I would manage the finances first and foremost.
Thanks very much. I hope I'm doing this in the right order, and I don't think I am, but I think, Mr. Phelan, this first question goes to you. We're going to move on to business and community economic development. The proposed siting of the C-Mart Asian supermarket in North Quincy, which was originally proposed in 2008 and rejected twice by the City Council, still has support within the Asian community. A second lawsuit filed in land court has been awaiting a judge's ruling for 17 months. What would you say to residents about the issue?
I would say be patient. Let the judge decide. I think the facts have been presented to the court. I think a thorough job has been done by both sides. And I think the courts are extremely competent to make that decision on behalf of the city, since there couldn't be any resolution of it. I think it was unfortunate that there couldn't be a resolution, but the fact is there couldn't. So it went to the courts. Be patient. But I think a broader topic in terms of the CMOD topic in general is Asian businesses generally. We have to welcome the Asian business community into the city. We have to do everything we can, from the Inspectional Services Department, from the Quincy Chamber of Commerce, and from the Mayor's office to encourage Asian businesses to flourish. And I think that's the broader topic. But just like any business, it has to fit within the community that it's being proposed. And I believe the CMOD is something that would fit in that area. I think there's a need for it. I think I think the judge will certainly consider the facts, and I'm hopeful that that decision will be reached soon.
Thank you. 60 seconds, Mr. Cook.
Well, the judge will make that decision, hopefully in the near future. The City Council deliberated over that project, and it came down, I believe, to traffic. The traffic congestion. You can't talk traffic out of one side of your mouth and then the other say it's okay to go there. To put a supermarket in that location with that very narrow Haywood Street would have been very problematic, and I agree with some of the traffic studies. Now, we pledged to work with CMOD to find another more suitable location. Some have said that once the Stop and Shop Hannaford merge is over, who knows if Hannaford will still be there. Now, when Hannaford went in originally, the original market went in, there was a Shaw's. There was a tremendous amount of community input, and a whole intersection had to be redone to accommodate that with a separate set of lights and a certain amount of parking. So we have to do these things in a proper sequence. I respect the City Council's decision on it. Whatever the judge decides, then we'll implement it.
Thank you. Mr. Koch, this one, you're first. Development of hundreds of apartments and condominiums are planned for Quincy, but very few of them include affordable housing. The Metropolitan Area Planning Commission has reported that nearly 43% of city households are cost burdened. That means they are paying more than they can afford toward housing. What can or would you do to increase affordable housing options in the city?